So for step 12, the steering linkage, well, there's quite a bit of work that we need to do in this step. So you can see that we've got all these pieces that we need to get, and then attach everything, and then we have to attach the whole steering linkage to the chassis. Now the cool thing about this is kind of like a ball bearing rack steering system. So you can see we've got all of our screws, but there are all of the ball bearings that come in the kit, our ball connectors, and of course the steering posts. So we need to build the steering rack first, and then we're going to attach that to the chassis. Now you're also going to see that they're asking you to use AG. So we're going to be using the liquid thread lock. Now typically I don't use this, but I've decided that on this kit, based on the fact that we've got metal to metal holding in all of the plastic parts, and it is the steering linkage, I am going to use it. So there are all of the steering linkage pieces and some of these plastic parts that you can see that are there, A12, etc. We'll start this. So I'll set this up and we'll put the steering rack together and attach it to the chassis. So let's start with this S3 piece, and you can see that these two pieces here, obviously one's very different. You can see there is the underside of both. Well, we know that this MB8 is going to screw onto here. Now what's interesting is they're actually saying that they would like you to put grease on that. So I'm going to put this into our box wrench, and I'm just going to give this a little bit of a dab of grease. Not a lot, but a little. Just kind of just spread it around on the sides there. Now I don't know why that is. I've not seen that before, but we'll get this into that arm. And I'm just going to go around, make sure that that's going in correctly. You can see it's not, it's up. So let's reposition. This looks about, so looking closer. There we go. Now maybe the grease helps it to go in and sit better. I'm not sure. But there we go. There is our ball connector in place. So with that done, now you can see that we need to grab this S1 piece, and you can see it's talking about note direction. Well, you can see on the other side, it's the raised side. This is the flat, so we want the flat. So let's take this one. You can see the MB2s, they are the longer screws, which I can match up again, just make sure that is correct. I'm going to take an MB7, which is the smaller ball bearing, slide that on there. Then it's going to go into the top of there. So basically, the ball bearings actually sitting inside. Well, tell you what, because of the way they're showing it, let's actually put both of those into place, just like that. Turn this back upside down. You can see that the screw is going to go up and into this arm here, which sits right like that. So that's going to screw directly into there. So let's do this. I'll grab the screwdriver. Just want to make sure that that's going in correctly, and it's not quite. That should be almost correct. Looks it. So we'll screw this in. Make sure that's going in, yes. And of course it says, do not over tighten. So I'm at the end by the looks of it right there. Yep. So I won't over tighten it, but it's nice and smooth. Now because that part is on, and you can see it would sit like that, let's get these two pieces on. These are our MB9 ball connectors. So again, I'm going to put it into here. This one. Oh, you can't do that with our box wrench this time. So we're going to have to stick with using the screwdriver. So let's get this one in. And that's going to sit like this. Take a bit of time to screw this in, I think. It's going in. Just wait till we get to the end. It's not quite there yet. There we go. And again, I'm not over tightening this at all. And get that one in as well. Make sure that's going in relatively level. Make sure. Yeah, there we go. So we'll screw this in now all the way. And again, once I get to the end, I'm just going to stop. I don't need to over tighten this, but I will make sure that they both are at the end. Yes. So there we go. There are those two ball connectors. We've got this one in place. So now that that is done, I think we'll put in this little A10 piece here, which you can see is just this little plastic part right here. And it's a tiny MA3 screw, and it's going to go right there in the center. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the point of this one is yet. I'm sure there's a reason, but I don't see it. And I'm sure we'll end up seeing it once we finish building this, but this has to fit right here. And just make sure that that's getting in level. Yes, pretty much is. So we'll tighten this down. And that's just going to sit there like that. And again, don't really know what that's for, but I guess we'll find out as we go along. Now, if we go back to the MB7 right here, we've got our ball bearing in, which we put in earlier. So now we're using that MB2. We're going to put that back up, and it goes into the bearing, into that, and into the other arm. So this now is going to sit into this one. So I'm just going to get this into position correctly so I can hold this right. And let's see if we can get this in, which we're not quite there yet. Let's make sure that that is sitting properly. Okay, so just want to make sure that is going in correct. Yes, it is. So let's hold this down and let's continue to screw this in. Sometimes it goes in nice and easy, other times not quite. Okay, so there we go. That's that piece attached as well. Looks like it does need to be screwed in just a bit more. Yeah, there we go. So this is super smooth. Those bearings are making that really nice. So if we look at this, once that is all together, that is what it should look like. So we're done with this side, and we can move on to attaching it to the chassis. So I'll grab that. So in working on this side, you can see that they're showing they want you to attach these screws first, because they're going to attach the steering post, which is attached to the chassis. So we're going to do that, and of course here's our chassis. The steering post is going to sit basically right there, and then the screw comes up from the underside. So they want you to use the thread lock, and I can sort of see why they're doing that with this step. So let's grab a little bit of thread lock, and this is on the MB3 screw. So these are the little flathead screws. I'm going to put a little bit of thread lock on the screw itself. There we go. And I'm going to turn this over. And this needs to go up and through. I'm just going to wipe my hands down here. Turn this over, and we're going to screw that in, just like that. Now obviously that is going to have to sit in there. So I'm going to turn this around, grab the screwdriver, and we're going to screw this into place. And there we go. There is one in place. Let's get that screw in there again. So that should hold this nice and tight, and it shouldn't loosen up, because obviously your steering is all attached to this, so you don't want this to fall out, and that's the reason for the thread lock. So that one's on. So we need to do the same thing with the other side. So again, I'm going to grab the screw, and the funny thing is I'm going to try something a little different on this side. If I put that in place and I turn this over, and I put on a little bit of thread lock from this side, that might be a better plan. Because what they're saying is they don't want you to get the thread lock onto the plastic. It's meant to just go into the metal, so it would, it sort of eats the plastic. Now I didn't, I made a point of making sure that I wasn't putting on much so that I knew that it would actually attach okay, without getting the thread lock on it. But I'm trying it this way just to avoid it getting on at all. And there we go. So there is both of these steering posts in place, and I've used the thread lock, which is unusual for me, but again, I've decided that with this being the steering rack, maybe we should. So there we go. There's our steering posts. So now we need to attach everything else. So for the next step, you can see that we have these 4 MA10 bearings, and you can see that these two are going to go onto the underside. So let's see if they'll actually go in and stick. Yes, they will. There's one, and there's two. So that's on the underside. Both those bearings are in. And then on the top side, same again. We've got a bearing that's got to go there, and the other bearing that's got to go there. So all 4 bearings are now on. So as you can see, the bearing went into there, and this is going to fit on top. So you can see that these arms are going to fit onto here and onto here, just like that. So that is essentially how that's going to look. So with that sitting there like that, we put the top bearings in. We now have these A12 pieces. They're like caps, and we've got the MB3 screws again. So that's going to have to sit on there like that, and then we put the screw in. Now, I'm not sure that I want to thread lock this down, but I'm going to do it just because it's showing it. But I wonder sometimes whether this is a good idea, but we're going to do it this time. So if I take one of these, put that through, and the reason I'm doing that is so that I'm not touching the plastic. I'm going to put on a little bit of thread lock and just sort of spin this skewer stick that I put the thread lock onto, and I'm not going to put on much, but now we can stick that there, and I'm going to screw this down. There we go. Make sure that that is fitting okay. Yes, it is. And again, I'm just going to make sure that is in all the way. Seems to be. So again, same idea with the other side. I'm going to grab this. Going to grab the screw, put that through, then I'm going to grab the skewer, grab a little bit more of the thread lock, and put a little bit on it. Sort of wrap it around. Not overdoing it, but there should be enough there. Then we're going to put that down there, and again screw this down. So if I just do a double check, make sure everything is fine. Seems to be. So there is our rack. And it's very smooth. Like, these bearings are making this really, really nice. Very cool. So there we go. There is the steering linkage in place. So step 12 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 13 and attach the steering servo.